Hey, free to play gang, welcome back to another video. So as you can see, I'm wearing a proper t-shirt. I'm not wearing a singlet anymore because a few of you guys called me out for wearing a wife beater and I take great offense to that. I am not married yet. So today's video was a suggestion made by Elan. Hey daddy, now that Rewind can reverse Abilimons, it's a good time to update the skill up guide video. Yes, I totally agree. So let's take a look at the espers that we have, and I'm also going to include some of the new espers as well, even though at this point of time, I know nothing about them, so I'm purely going by my understanding of the game and basing all of my information on the knowledge that I already have. That's about it, okay? So at the end of the day, whatever that I share with you in this video, take it with a huge grain of salt because everything that I'm saying here comes from my own opinion, and this is exactly what I would do if I were to skill up my espers, okay? So these are the order that I would skill them up. And these are by no means me telling you what to do. There are always a handful of angry comments that say like, oh no, this is completely wrong, okay, do not follow this at all. And the worst part is these people are completely right. I am completely wrong, so don't trust anything that I say. So as always, we are going to start off with the 3-star espers, and then the 4-star espers, and finally the legendaries or the 5-star espers. So as you can see over here, the higher up the better, right? So double S will be a priority position, S would be important, which means that they will be your next target. And A would be nice to have, B would be more towards the end game content, and C would be niche, which means that if you really want to build the esper, it's for a very specific purpose. And finally D, which is no priority, which means that you can complete the game without building these espers. So the first two are going to go straight into D, no priority. I don't really feel like talking too much about them. Now Berenice, I'm going to put her at double S. Now do take note that this priority scales according to the rarity of the esper. So just because this esper is over here, doesn't mean that if another esper is way up here from a different rarity, then they are like the same. That is not true, okay? Their utility may be completely different. One could be absolutely better than the other. But because your Abilimons are spread across rare Abilimon, epic Abilimon, and legendary Abilimon, that is where the spread is necessary. So I hope you really understand this fact. Now let's continue. So Berenice is really good for almost all content in the game, especially all PvE content. She is absolutely good all the way to Temporal Tower level 50, so why not, right? And she's also very useful in Shadow Gale as well, which is one of the more endgame content. Now next we have Brynn. This is going to be a very niche case because she is an attacker with an attack buff as well, which is a really good thing to have. But the places where you see her used is in speed tuning different comps, for example. Next we have Chalmers. I'm going to put him towards endgame because that's truly where he shines. And now Chang Pu, she's going to go into the important tier because she needs the skill ups in order for her heals to be a little bit more efficient. But the thing is, she really has 2 different heals, so she's not really like top priority. David is going to D tier, and now Drew is going to double S. He's probably one of the best rare espers in the game right now. And Freddy is going to go to A tier. He is a really nice esper to skill up, but not that urgent. Now Hall, I'm going to put him as C tier. He's more towards building a Fafnir team. And the thing is, the reason why I do not want to put him a little bit higher is because he don't necessarily need skill ups. So that's the thing about this list as well. So there are some espers who really do not need skill ups to function very well, right? And Hall is one of those espers that do not really need skill ups because his scaling on his passive is not going to be game breaking. It goes up from 20% to 40%, which is really not a lot. Now Helena is pretty much the same as Chang Pu. She is a pretty decent healer at the early game. Now Jeanne, she's going to be very useful when you start accomplishing like Spatial Tower, for example. She's going to be very useful for her stunning kit. She's one of the few espers in this game that can stun on every single one of her skills. Now Lauren, I'm going to have to put her at a D tier. I don't think she has any more use in this game right now. Same goes for Layla. Now Leon is going to go into the same tier as Hall and Brynn because he's very niche. He's really good. He's really good in the end game, especially if you want to speed tune your comps. But that's basically where you're going to use him for. Now Liao, I might choose either between A or B, but I think I'll put him at B tier, not because this evens out the entire row, but because I feel like he is more geared towards like endgame stuff. So for example, like Temporal Tower, that's where he's very useful in. You do not really need to use him in Spatial Tower, and he's also pretty legit in holo battles as well. Now next we have Melanie. She's gonna go into the same tier as Jeanne. I think they are both pretty much the same. So Melanie is kind of like an AP control petrify bot. Now Q, gonna go into the C tier as well, very niche. And now Tang Yun, okay, so some people might put him at double S tier. I will put him at S tier because he is not going to be the first esper that you want to build in the game, right? So for example, if you're an early game player, which is why you're actually looking at this rare tier list in the first place, your priority is not a Tang Yun, your priority is a Drew for damage dealing because Drew covers a lot of the important elements at the start of the game, which is basically your Chronos followed by your APAP. Now Unky Chai, previously I put him at like the top tier, right? But I'm going to reduce him a little bit. So now he's going to go into endgame. I feel like he's only pretty good at the endgame right now. In the early game, you probably might be better off with Suhua. And that is where she comes in, straight to double S tier. Now Zelma, definitely C tier as well, very niche. And now we move on to the epics. So first on the epic list, we're going to put Alexa into D tier. There is strictly no priority in her at all. You might want to use her in endgame PvP, but that is also a very small possibility. Now next for Alice, I think she belongs to the nice category. You have better buffers that are a lot easier to skill up. So for example, you have Suhua and you also have Unky Chai, right? So these two espers are a lot easier to skill up if you want attack buffs. And also I do feel like Dahlia, which I'm going to talk about, has a bigger priority than her. So I don't think that even though she has attack and crit buff, she deserves to be any higher at all. Now the thing is, she works without skill ups pretty well because her passive is able to call her allies anyway. So I think that's her main selling point in my opinion. Okay, so now Anesidora, I'm gonna put her at SS. She is probably one of the best DPS espers in this game that is extremely easy to build and also very powerful. So she does not need relics at all to function. She just needs to have a pretty good speed, and if you can slap on ocean waves on her, she's going to be very powerful. Not only does she have an insane amount of damage, she also has stuns on her kit, and she gives herself a lot of turns with her second skill. So definitely a high priority. Next one, we have Arcana. We have talked about him so many times. And now for Anesidora, I'm going to put her at nice tier because she is probably going to be more effective towards like the early game or the very end game, and what I'm talking about is probably Shadow Stream. Apart from these two areas, I do not really find any use for her. I have her fully skilled up, fully ascended, everything fully resonated as well. There is no content that I would choose her over another esper like Heng Yue, Clara, or whatever, right? Now next we have Aurelius, straight up D tier, do not even touch him at all, he is trash. Now Bonnie, she's gonna go into endgame because she is strictly an endgame esper, right? She excels very strongly in PvP. Now Catherine is going to go straight into D tier, not because she's bad, she is really good, but the thing is you do not need skill ups on her. Her third skill does not need skill ups because when your ally dies, her third skill is then going to go into 0 cooldown immediately. Now Celine is an esper that you will need to build in the future, but that is only when you're trying to attempt stuff like Shadow Stream or Shadow Gale. Chloe is going to be an easy S tier. She is one of the most powerful espers in the game. Now Dahlia is a strict priority, and the reason is because her third skill actually increases in AP as you skill her up, so that is very important. It is essential that you max her third skill as soon as you can. Now next we have Joser. I am going to put him at D tier not because I think that he's bad, but because I have not actually tested him yet. So I cannot guarantee that he's going to be bad, nor will he be good. But the thing is, I'm able to clear every single content in the game without him. So for the time being, I'm going to put him at D tier. Now Ira is going to go into nice, or you might even want to push up to S tier depending on where you are in the game. I personally never needed to use her, but when I do use her, she is quite effective. Fabrice is going to go into S tier because his second skill needs the cooldown as soon as you can. That is what sells him the most. That is a very big factor for him, especially in clearing some of the content in the game. Like for example, if you want to clear Spatial Tower for the first time, he is an excellent choice in giving your DPS espers an additional turn. So Fabrice with Ocean Waves, super powerful dude. Now Falcon, just like Joser, gonna go into D tier. Now Heng Yue, I'm going to put her into double S tier, and this is not because of Clara's nerf. The thing is, Heng Yue, I always say that she is extremely good for PvE content. She is on par with the best healers for PvE content. I have used her for every single content in this game, and I have shown it as well. I have proved that she is useful all the way to even Temporal Tower 50. So there is completely no excuse, right? Now Jacob, he is going to be quite important not to cap out. Okay, so do take note that it's not for capping out, but you need his second skill to be maxed. That's about it. Once his second skill is maxed, that's it, done. Do not touch him ever again. Now Jiang Man, easy double S tier. She has some of the biggest users in this game. Now Kara, if you want to build her for poison, I think she is a nice touch. She's going to be extremely niche, but she will need those skill ups if you want to use her for poisons. And now same goes for Kaylee. The reason why I put her here instead of anywhere higher is because she scales a little bit off crit, and that makes her more of a DPS esper. But the thing is, I would prefer pure controllers than a hybrid, for example. But there is of course one esper that completely breaks the mold. Now Laura, she is going to go into D tier straight away. Now the main reason why she is so strong, and she is one of the best espers in this game, and the reason why she is so strong is because of her passive, not because of her third skill. So you do not need to skill her up that urgently. Now this is pure speculation, but I'm going to push Li Guang all the way up to double S for a couple of reasons. So the first reason is she needs the AP push. I believe that the AP gain might increase with skill ups. And secondly, she needs that 3-turn cooldown on her third skill, and that is, I think, what makes her a really good esper. So going by Sander's stats, she is definitely going to deal a lot of damage, but at the same time, her third skill is going to make your team move so frequently. This is quite intense. Now, I would personally put Lin Xiao at the S tier, but I know a lot of you guys are going to get angry if I don't put her at double S, so I'm going to chuck her at double S. Now, the reason why I say that S tier is good enough for her is because her third skill actually gives her one additional stack of the Tiger Raw buff, which is completely unnecessary unless you have a way of using it. Like for example, unless you give her Avatara or you give her Astral Witchcraft. But if you do not give her any of those, she do not need to be in double S. You can even prioritize her at an A tier, for example. Now Lomian is an easy S tier. You're going to need him very early on if you have him. He's going to be so useful for Spatial Tower. And now Louis, I've talked about this very long ago, but he's going to go into a nice category. You do not need to skill him up at all, because the main utility that he has in Fafnir is going to be his first skill, which is a better way to average out 3 hits than his third skill, which hits 9 times but randomly, so you're not always going to get 3 hits in. So sometimes you might only get 1 hit in. Now Loyan is an extremely busted Esper that a lot of you guys should start to use him, especially if you're stuck in Spatial Tower. He's going to be such a boon, especially against the Heights. His third skill can actually affect the Heights max HP. But the main reason why he's at A tier and not higher is because it's only his second skill that needs the skill ups. Now Lin is going to go to endgame. If you do have her, which all of you guys should have her, she's going to be very useful for Fafnir. And Meredith is going to be one of those Espers that you're going to use her for fun, so the skill ups help her with her DPS, which then helps her with her healing power. Now Mona is going to go into niche as well. She is useful with skill ups, but probably not essential because she do not get cooldown reductions. And now another speculation Esper over here, so I am going to put Nick in S tier. I do feel like he needs the skill up quite urgently because that would then scale off multiplicatively with the effect of his second skill, which further reduces his skill cooldowns. So Nick with full skill ups and ocean waves can be quite intense, I think. Now for Laura, I think she's good enough without skill ups at the start because you just need her skills to go off and she is fine, right? That's it. So in PvP, for example, you just need her skills to go off once and that's it. But I think towards the end game where maybe there is more content in the future that relies on her casting it a few times, then that's when I would think that she's going to be a little bit more relevant and a little bit more useful with the skill ups. Now Pritzker, I might actually want to put him at double S tier, but I think being at S tier is good enough. Now Pritzker is a definite endgame Esper. Now Sander, I'm going to put him at double S tier. He is definitely one of the strongest Espers in this game and he needs the skill ups. Okay, his third skill goes down to 3 turns and his second skill as well. So his output is insane. Now Stewart, I'm going to put him at A tier. He does a lot of damage, like a really big chunk of damage. But he's generally only more useful towards the mid-end game where you want to speed tune your Chronos a little bit faster or you want to use him for holo battles, for example. And now the difference between Taylor and Stewart is that Taylor is more towards endgame. He's not going to perform as well as Stewart in, let's say, Chronos, but he's going to be super powerful in PvP. Now Xiaoyin is probably going to be an S tier for me in my opinion because he has a lot of output and he's going to be very useful in, let's say, some of the Temporal Tower runs, Cube Miracle as well, and definitely in Fafnir. Now with the new update coming to the twins, I feel like they are probably going to go up into S tier because I do feel like they have a lot of potential since their third skills are going to activate each other's third skill, which means that the shorter your cooldowns are, the more often you can spam your third skill, right? So I think because of that, they might have quite a good standing over here. Because after this update, it completely changes the way they function, right? So now they are no longer strictly controller or DPS. Now they are a mixture of both. So for example, this guy, if he takes his turn, he's going to have controlling effects from his twin. And similarly, the white twin, when he takes his turn, this guy is going to land defense breaks. Alright, to our final leg. Haha, get it? We're going to start off with Ahmed and I'm going to put him at A tier. Okay, so I'm not going to put him so high up because take note that his first skill is a massive skill up sink. If all of your skill ups go into his first skill, you are screwed. I think that is 7 entire skill ups going to his first skill. That is very dangerous and he does absolutely nothing. Now Biondina is strictly an endgame Esper, but you will need to skill her up at the endgame because her passive really needs that skill up. That's the main thing. And now for Cecilia, I think I'll put a D tier not because she is a bad Esper. I do not necessarily think that she's a bad Esper. I think her main priority is point war and that's about it. And if you're going to be using her for point war, you do not need her to have skill ups at all. And now everyone's favorite Clara, she is still going to be double S tier. Okay, so a lot of people think that wow, she has been nerfed to the ground, they buried her alive basically. That is not true at all. Okay, so in terms of PvE content, you do not need immunity on your first skill that much. It's not quite the same as a Gabrielle's third skill that grants you 2 turns of immunity. Her skill 1 only grants you 1 turn of immunity and it's usually only a very clutch moment that you need it. But apart from that, in terms of PvP, yes, absolutely major nerf to her kit. That Avatara proc on her first skill is what makes or breaks the entire PvP round. Now Donna is going to go into endgame, I'm sure you guys already know it. And now Gabrielle, she is definitely going to be double S tier. She is one of the highest priorities in this game in terms of skill ups. I have heard people disagree with me on this stance before, but the thing is her second and third skill needs the skill up urgently because you're going to be using her in some of the content which requires you to throw your immunity a lot more frequently, or maybe you might need more defense breaks more urgently. So like for example in a Temporal Tower, this is where she becomes very effective with skill ups. Now next is complete speculation. I'm going to put Gaius at D tier and this is a good thing. Okay, if you have a legendary Esper that does not need skill ups, you basically have gold in your pocket. And the reason why I feel like he does not need skill ups is based on what his skills can do. I feel like he can use his third skill whenever he take a new turn. So for example, he uses his third skill, he goes straight into his second skill because the third skill actually resets the cooldown of his second skill. And then on his next turn, he can then go back into his third skill and rinse and repeat and keep cycling through both of his forms. So because of that, I don't think he has a lot of priority unless you want him to have a little bit more DPS. Now height, while most people are going to assume I'm going to put him at endgame, I might actually put him at A tier for one reason, and the reason is because a lot of early game players actually use height to cheese APEP in a sense. So height is a pretty decent choice for dealing with APEP, especially when you are at a state of a game where you just want to clear higher level content without having the relics to do so, and that's where height comes in. Now Jiang Li, I normally don't do this, but I do feel like he deserves an S tier because of just how broken he is and how essential that cooldown reduction is on his second skill, or rather his passive. So because of that, I'm inclined to put him at S tier just because having him on all of your teams is going to automatically help you clear a lot of content. So it's kind of like, why not, right? Next, Jin Yu Yao, I will put her at niche because you do not need her to have skill ups on her passive for her to function in, let's say, Shadow Gale. But if you want to reduce her cooldown on her third skill or increase her stun chance, I think she does increase her stun chance on her first skill, then you might want to consider scaling her up. But honestly, I've used her for so long, it's really not a priority. Now Louis is one of the better early game DPS Esper, so I will put him alongside with height. And Liling is definitely endgame, so at the point where I am right now, I might actually consider scaling him up right now because I'm using him a lot in point war and that extra bit of damage is always going to help. But in terms of like early game completion and all that, this is really not a priority. Next we have Lucas, and this is strictly my own opinion, but I'm going to put him at double S tier. Some people might disagree with me because some people also believe that Lucas is really good without his skill ups because his first skill is what sells him the most. But in my opinion, if you do not skill him up at all, his third skill has a 6-turn cooldown, which means that he's not going to be that ready all the time for Temporal Tower. So I'll prefer his third skill to go down to 4 turns, that's about it. I think he deserves the skill ups. Next we have Nama, this is strictly endgame. I am still trying to figure out how to use him. I have him fully skilled up, but I have not used him much at all. And now Ollie is going to go into niche tier. I do not necessarily feel like you need him to be skilled up. He can be completely not skilled up and still function perfectly fine because his passive really just needs to proc once and that's about it. Now Ophelia, she's going to go into A tier as well. She's definitely one of the strongest DPS Espers in this game. But then again, not a high priority because like I said before and like what I've covered before, there are other cheaper Esper alternatives and you do not need to use a legendary Abilimon on her that way, right? And next we have Raven. I honestly feel like she don't need skill ups at all because she is really good brand new in box basically. And now for Sally, this is going to be a little bit interesting. I'm going to put her at B tier, not anywhere higher. And the reason why I put her at B tier is because at the start, you only really need her to be on Ocean Waves for her to just constantly use her third skill and never go into her first skill. I think that's the main thing that people are concerned about, which is how she wastes a turn when she goes into her first skill. So just run her with Ocean Waves and you're fine. But towards the end game, you need to scale up because you're going to move away from Ocean Waves and you're going to probably put her on Snow Dowager, for example. I think that's a little bit more effective on her. Next, Sienna is going to go into endgame. She's very, very, very useful for all of the Desolate Land bosses. Now, Tang Xuan is going to go into niche tier as well. I wouldn't really recommend you to skill him up because of how he lacks use in a lot of content. But the thing is, if you skill him up, he becomes quite a bit of a powerhouse in terms of like he's getting his skills up in no time, right? So I think it can be quite interesting and honestly quite fun to run him. Now Tever, I'm going to put him at D tier. There is strictly no priority at all. He does not need cooldowns on his third skill because of his passive and the way it works. So I've covered him before in 2 different accounts that do not have skill ups on him and he's still godlike. Now TA, I'm going to put at niche, and the reason is because her third skill does not actually improve with skill ups, only her skill cooldown. And if you're going to be using her, you're mostly going to be using her in PvP, which means that the first turn is the most important turn, and therefore you do not need skill ups at all. You might argue that you want to improve her second skill a little bit, but honestly, I don't feel like it's necessary. Now Tricky is going to go into S tier for me, so in my opinion, I feel like he performs really well with skill ups. And Unas is going to be an easy double S tier. we can't even reach the top anymore. So he's going to be an easy double S tier. Definitely one of the few Espers that you want to cap out at the start. 3 turns cooldown on a 30% AP push on the fastest Esper in the game. And finally, we end with Zora. I believe that she deserves an S tier. I feel like she needs to use her second and third skills a little bit more frequently, so the reduction on her cooldown is going to help her kit a lot. So that's about it for this video. Oh my god, it is completely expands across the screen, right? You cannot see the whole picture in one go. But anyway, if you have any other suggestions or improvement to this tier list, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. I'm 100% sure that no one shares the same opinion in this world, and you definitely disagree with me on some of the picks over here, and that's totally fine. I can deal with it. But if you skip to the end of the video just to look at the tier list for its entirety, I would highly recommend you to go back to the introduction to listen to a little bit more of what I have to say about this tier list before you start commenting all the negative things that you have to say. Now with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this tier list. It took a little bit of time to plan this out as well, and honestly I hope that this video helped you in any way, especially since we are entering an event right now that allows you to reset the Abilimons on any of your espers. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Daddy Free to Play, and as always I will see you in the next video.